it's Camilla from the Sewing Society, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to make this cute blouse. So I used the Anna Allen Anthea blouse as a base, but you could use any blouse pattern that you like that has a button front and puffy sleeves. Okay, let's get started. For this project you will need the Anthea blouse pattern or your preferred button-up pattern, the correct amount of fabric needed for your size as per the pattern instructions. I used about 1.5 meters or 1.6 yards of fabric. I used 2 different kinds of fabric for my blouse. I had a remnant of some broderie anglaise, and then I used a little bit of white lawn that I had for the back. You'll also need 5 buttons, some lightweight interfacing, and also some bias binding. I made my own bias binding for this blouse, but if you prefer to just use ready-made, that's fine too. The pattern adjustments that I made were to take off some of the hem. So to do that, I measured 23 centimeters down from the underarm on both the front and the back pieces, and then drew a line at right angles to the center front and the center back to get a nice straight line. For the peplum, you'll need to cut a piece that's 18 centimeters high by 1.5 times the new hem circumference. So I made a size 10 in the Anthea blouse, and my total hem came to 128 centimeters. Therefore, my peplum measured 18 centimeters high by 192 centimeters long. You can do this over as many pieces of fabric that you need to. I ended up joining 2 or 3 pieces of fabric together to make the full length of 192 centimeters. You can make it longer if you like. The longer you make it, the more ruffly it'll be. Here I've got my new front pattern piece trimmed down, and also the sleeve piece ready to cut out. Now I've put the sleeve on the cross grain because I didn't have enough fabric to put it on the straight grain. If you were making this out of a different shaped sleeve, one that was a bit more fitted, I would definitely not do this because it can make the sleeve warp out of shape. But because this is a loose fitting puffy sleeve, then it should be fine. And here you can see I've got the back piece on the fold ready to cut, and also the bias binding. Now, I was so sad to discover that when I started making this video, it didn't record properly this part of the project. So I've got a little drawing so that you can see what I did, and hopefully it makes sense. So to make the neckline so that we can have the bow tie, we need to finish off the top of the button placket so that it is away from the rest of the neckline. So what I did was I prepped it as normal with the interfacing. I folded in the 1 centimeter seam allowance, and then folded the placket back onto itself to the front, and then sewed down a 1 centimeter seam allowance at the top so that we can attach the bias binding for the necktie and finish off the neckline. We'll need to do a little snip into the neckline so that it's freestanding from the rest of the placket. There's a picture of that in the next frame. So here you can see I finished off the top of the button placket along the neckline, and I've snipped into the seam allowance so that the remaining neckline is free. And then I've also gone ahead and sewn down the rest of the button placket. After that, I sewed the front and the back together at the shoulder seams, and then prepped the sleeves to be inserted. So here I've put the gathering stitches on both the top sleeve head and the sleeve hem, and I'm putting the sleeve in flat. Sometimes I prefer to do it this way. I think it's just a little bit easier, especially when there's lots of gathering happening. Here I've got both of the sleeves inserted and I finished off all the raw seams with the overlocker. Next we're going to sew the sleeve seam and the side seams together all in one continuous row, and we'll do that on both sides. I finished those side seams with the overlocker as well, and now it's time to move on to cuffs for the sleeve hem. So I've prepped them here by sewing the shorter edges together to make a loop, and I've also pressed up the 1 centimeter seam allowance on one of the edges. This will be the edge that we don't sew first. And just gather our sleeve up into the space of the cuff. Okay, now it's time to attach the binding to the neckline to make the tie. So I've added an extra 40 centimeters to the end of the standard neck binding piece so that you've got enough there to do a cute little bow. So here I'm putting the binding on to the wrong side of the garment, and then we'll press it forward to the front so that it has a nice finish on the outside. Here I hope you can see the snip that I made to enable the binding to go onto the neckline to create that finish with the button placket protruding out. And just a reminder here that it is a 1 centimeter seam allowance throughout the blouse pattern. Here you can see I'm getting ready to finish off the binding for around the neck, and you can see here how that top of the button placket now is free away from the neckline, and then the binding is free from it as well, so that you're able to make that bow. Okay, so next we have to prepare the peplum pieces. So once you've got the correct length that you need for your size top, we'll sew them together and finish off the two ends. I did mine to sort of look like the button plackets in the front, so that when they're lined up it looks like it's a continuation of the button placket. And we'll do 2 rows of gathering stitch along one of the long edges so that we're able to gather up our piece to fit into our hem. Once your peplum piece fits into the width of your top hem, you can sew that in place and finish off with overlocking. I did a really narrow hem on the bottom of the peplum. I finished it off with the overlocker and then turned it up once. Now it's time for buttons. We're nearly finished. I have such a massive button collection. I've been given so many buttons over the years, and they're all higgledy-piggledy, and I love that about my button stash. But sometimes when you do need more than a couple of buttons, it can be tricky. So let's see how we go. I was pretty fortunate. I found 5 buttons that were the same, so that was good. I started my first button 1 centimeter down from the top of the button placket, and then 8 centimeters in between each button after that. So there she is, all finished. I'm so pleased with how this blouse hack turned out. I love the little bow at the collar and the peplum. It's really sweet. Because this tutorial was a hack, I didn't go into step-by-step detail. This was more like a speedy snippet of what to do, but in future there will be lots more in-depth tutorials as well. I hope you enjoyed that quick little tutorial, and if you liked it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more videos like this one. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.